Today on the show, new strategies for teaching kids gun safety, competition shooting, a new product, all with John McClain from Rock Island Armory and Armscor. He is a diehard gun guy. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Colt, Armscor, Vortex, Walther, Silencer Central, and Range Ready. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. We're back. And today on the show, we've got a guy with an interesting background. I mean, we're talking about competitive shooter, trainer, also works for Armscor, Rock Island Armory. Welcome in, John McClain. John, welcome in, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
First off, is that your real name? And when was the last time you've been to Nakatomi Plaza? We have to get that out of the way right away.
Yes, it is my real. Oh, well, I mean, officially, my real name is Jonathan McClain, but when you're a kid trying to spell Jonathan, when you're like, why can't I just learn how to spell John?
Yeah.
It just makes it way easier. And then as I got older, I found out that it was just way cooler because of the movie. But no, I was not named for the movie. I was named before the movie. I was born before the movie came out. Although some people pointed out that the script was probably written before I was born. So maybe, something
right.
there. But last time I was at Nakatomi Plaza, actually, I try and make it a point, if anyone that follows me on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, I try and make it a point that every Christmas I do some sort of post about having to go to Nakatomi Plaza.
Maybe reflecting on that day. It was a rough day, but I made it out.
Yeah, or I'm having to go back because these guys just can't learn their lessons,
Yeah.
I did a post 2 years ago where I look like I'm crawling through the vents with a Zippo.
Nice.
And that was my Christmas one. And then one last year I was putting on a whole bunch of kit and grabbing my rifles and acting like I was about to go lay some hate on Hans.
If you're watching the video of this, you can't tell, but John is actually barefoot right now.
Yeah, and they're bleeding like nobody's business, but
Well, man, I wanted to get you on because we've had folks from Armscor, Rock Island Armory on the show before. I mean, talk about your background and how you got into shooting and how you became to actually work in the gun industry.
That's an interesting story for me because I grew up in a house that was anti-gun. My parents did not like firearms. We didn't have firearms in the house. And naturally, one of the easiest ways to get your kids interested in something is to tell them not to do it. So toy guns, squirt guns, like I was obsessed with them, right? And then as soon as I turned 18, I went out and bought my first rifle. It was a Ruger 1022, and I hid it under my bed for 2 years.
Are you serious?
Yeah. After 2 years, I finally came out to my parents. I said, you know what? I can't hide this anymore. I'm a gun owner. And they were like, oh, actually, they were impressed that for 2 years, nothing had happened and I'd been responsible with it. And then as soon as I turned 21, I bought a handgun. And a buddy of mine out in Vegas, because that's where I was born and raised, used to shoot USPSA. He still does, but his name's Steve Warner. And he asked me and his son if we wanted to go out and watch him shoot competition one day. So we just went to a local match with him. We watched him shoot. And I was like, man, that looks like fun. I'll give it a try. So at the time I had a Glock 22. I took that out to a match. I think I shot 2 matches with that gun before I sold it for a Glock 35, which is the competition version. Because
how many people's first pistol is a Glock 22? I mean, seriously.
Although now I think a Glock 17, I think is probably the more popular one now because the
I would agree is probably a better answer. But like at some point, it was like my cop buddy said I needed something in a 40 cal, and that was the thing.
Yeah, 40 cal was supposed to be that magical caliber that merges 9mm and 45 together. Like it was supposed to be this like awesome round, which I mean, don't get me wrong, it was kind of cool for what it was, but everyone's kind of going back to 9, including me. I love 9mm over 40 any day, but yeah. So anyway, I go to this local match, I shoot a couple, I sell that gun, buy a competition pistol, and then start upgrading it and stuff. And I've been broke ever since. What was your like, you said you were interested in guns. I mean, a 1022 is a great way to start for anybody, but was it an interest in competition? I mean, what did you want to do with the guns? And I mean, what made you interested? Oh, TV and movies, man, for sure. Like I saw all the super, the super cool guys doing it, it was just so celebrated in the cinemas and stuff, like all the cool guys, all the good guys, even the bad guys, all had these awesome guns and were doing all these crazy jumps out of windows and stuff, dual wielding and akimbo and whatnot. So
Yep.
no, I mean, there was something that was very cool about it in my eyes. And the fact that I was told not to do it, again, just kind of made that desire even stronger, which is something that I took as a lesson, especially with my own kids now. I didn't want it to make it ever something that was like a taboo thing or something that they didn't have access to. So with my first daughter, who's now 15, I mean, I think I took her out when she was 5 for the first time to actually pull the trigger behind the same Ruger 1022 that I bought.
Yep.
And I just took her out so many times to the range that there was never any excitement about guns. It was always, hey, if you want to see your gun, if you want to touch it, if you want to go shoot it, all you have to do is ask me. I will stop what I am doing. We'll pack up the car and we'll go to the range. So that they knew, or she knew, that it wasn't like I want to go see it. I'm going to go find the keys and try and get into the safe. It was like, right. Hey, Dad, can I see my gun? Yeah, sure. Let's go. So.
Yeah. I think that's I've heard that story that version of that story before several times. And I think it's a change. I think that a lot of us grew up with, it's not that we have to go down this road, but it's kind of like the change in the way people approach like the birds and the bees conversation, but like, just don't do it. That was like it. Right. Like just don't, my dad had a gun. It was in the top shelf of the closet. Don't look at it. Don't touch it. If you do, you'll die. And like, that didn't work. It just didn't work. It was like, now those of us who have our own kids, it was like, I mean, I grew up in a little bit different situation. I mean, my dad was in the industry. There were guns all over the place. We shot a lot, but for a lot of people, it was like, yeah, we would sneak into the room where we knew the gun was, and we'd look at it or we'd touch it or whatever. And, thank God no one was hurt. And now I realize that was really bad. That was not a good move when you're 6 or 10 or 12 years old or whatever. And I think a lot of people have changed that to say, let's teach the kids about it. Let's take the curiosity and the mystery out of it. Let them shoot it. Absolutely. Teach them about gun safety. It's one of the things that I'm a big believer that I'd love to see more places teaching gun safety to kids. And I know that like, only 40% of people that own guns or whatever, depending on where you live. Look, I always say, just because you don't have a swimming pool in your backyard doesn't mean you shouldn't learn how to swim. I mean, you don't know where your kids are going to go, what they're going to encounter. I mean, it could be like one day at school. They're like, today is the day we teach gun safety. And at least that. What are your thoughts?
No, I absolutely agree. It's so frustrating to have to explain that to a lot of people, but like, I feel like if you don't teach your kids, the media is going to. Like I said, like I thought guns were cool from all the movies and the TV shows and stuff that I watched. If I didn't have knowledge of guns taught to me, which I didn't until I did when I turned 18 and I had someone competent take me out and show me how to shoot and taught me about the gun safety rules and stuff, right? A kid that has ever watched any sort of action movie where guns are involved understands, hey, the guy in the movie always puts this in the bottom of the gun here like this, and then he points like this and they pull the trigger. They understand how to shoot a gun because monkey see, monkey do. But by educating them, and you have to kind of, you can't say ignorance is bliss in that, because that's going to be where trouble happens.
Yeah.
So when you teach them, okay, when you do this and you do like this and you put the magazine in the bottom of the gun, this is what's going on. And now when we rack the slide, this is what has now happened. And then, you teach them how the gun functions and what's going to happen if you perform these actions. Then again, it's just knowledge. Knowledge is power, as corny as that saying is. It really is. Like, some of the best ways to arm yourself is in a library with books and knowledge, and especially with firsthand knowledge or in-person experience. So no, you're absolutely right. It's like, just because you don't have a pool doesn't mean the neighbor doesn't or their friend doesn't or anything like that. You damn well better teach hope that your kid knows how to swim in case they fall in. Like,
exactly. Yeah. So, and the knowledge is power thing that also goes towards not only kids, but adults, as far as just having a little bit of knowledge about guns can help reduce some of the fear, reduce some of the misconceptions about guns, what they are, what they aren't. And movies and TV shows may get people interested, but usually it's really bad information about what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And I mean, hence anybody who's brand new, who's an adult, who steps onto a range and you hand them a pistol, their finger goes in the trigger guard right away. It's like an instinctual thing. It's ergonomics. We design it that way, but we have to teach you to not do that. John, okay, quick break. After the break, I want to ask you about different types of competition shooting and kind of compare those. New from Rock Island Armory is the 5.0. It's a full-size 9mm pistol, but they've done some very innovative things to it. A patented RVS recoil system to minimize barrel mass and linear movement for super soft recoil. Deeper bore axis also helps the gun shoot flat, a buttery smooth trigger. They have a 2-piece modular grip. You can put it with optics or not. It's a cool gun. You can see more at armscor.com. New from Vortex. Vortex has a new red dot designed for pistols. I mean, red dots on pistols is kind of all the rage these days. The new one from Vortex is called the Defender CCW. It's a micro red dot, compact, rugged, ready to defend. And we've been shooting in it and actually been very impressed with it. It's has motion activated, turn on, turn off, activated advanced shock shield, polymer insert, fast rack, textured front face. And it's the Shield RMSC footprint, and it is a compact profile. It's something that can fit on a lot of different guns, and obviously people love Vortex. Go check them out, vortex.com. New from Ruger, and we've been shooting it and enjoying it, the Ruger Security 380. It was funny. The other day, we're on the range doing some video work. Chris Serena goes, dude, this is a good shooting gun. I go, yeah, because it's a 380, low recoil, but it's not tiny. And by not tiny, I mean the capacity is 15+1 on the full-size mag, or you can get it with 10+1. But it is a carry-sized gun. It's only 19.7 ounces. The Security 380, this is one to go check out over at Ruger.com. So, John, you got into competition shooting, but this was not a casual thing for you because, I mean, now you've third place in 3-Gun Nation, third in USPSA single stack nationals, multiple top 10 finishes. So you've gotten good at it, and sounds like you've tried different disciplines. I mean, talk about one thing I was thinking about when I saw you did 3-Gun Nation is, can you speak to like, what's the status of 3-Gun? Because there's kind of competition, shooting competitions, kind of ebb and flow of like, what's the hot thing this year?
Yeah, no. So let's start off with kind of the basics of the breakdowns of the matches that you can attend. So I think one of the easiest ones to get into is USPSA. So that's United States Practical Shooting Association. It's coast to coast, actually all across the world. It's just in the international side, they call it IPSC, or International Practical Shooting Confederation. But it's one of the disciplines where you can really get started with very minimalist equipment. Like if you have a 9mm Glock and like 4 or 5 magazines to go with it, a holster and mag pouches, which you don't even need. I mean, sometimes you can pull magazines out of your pockets and stuff at the local level and people won't care. It's a great way for you to be able to get involved and to give competition shooting a try. Not to mention, I mean, all you got to do is go on their website, say, find me a club, and they'll tell you, what's your zip code, and they'll list all the clubs around you that are USPSA clubs.
Yeah, it's a pretty organized organization. I mean, they have a lot going on.
Yeah, and they really do. They've got a lot of stuff going on. From there, you also have IDPA, which is the other pistol-based competition that's out there, and that's the International Defensive Pistol Association. So when you play that game, it's a little bit more tuned towards accuracy and things like tactical order and stuff like that. So for example, if you've got 3 targets in front of you, you can't just go 2 2 2 and call it good. You have to do like 1 1 1 2 2 2, right? So like everyone gets one first, and then you do follow-up shots. Like, so they've got a little bit of different rule set, but one of the pluses that they have is that they even limit their equipment a little bit more. Like, stages can't be over, like, I think it's like 21 rounds. So if you've got 2 magazines and then a third one that goes into your gun, you're set. So now you don't even need to have 4 or 5. Like it can be a very minimalist setup.
Right.
And
USPSA, a little bit more run and gun, a little bit more gamey. IDPA, more, I don't know, keeping it real. I'm doing the finger quotes because it's more geared towards training for defensive pistols.
correct, right. You even have to draw from concealment. So like you'll see guys that wear vests, shirt, or whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah.
From there, you can start getting into like multi-gun, which is going to be, pistol, rifle, shotgun, PCCs as well, depending on what multi-gun match you go to. And that obviously gets a little bit more intense because now instead of being competent with one firearm and one platform, you have to be competent with every platform that you're going to be walking up to a stage on. So definitely not where I would suggest people get started. Mostly because one, there's just a lot going on mentally, and then 2, it's not very cost effective to get into it. Like to get a pistol and then all the magazines and then a rifle and a shotgun and an optic and a belt setup. And I mean, it's just very heavy in the cost to get into it. But I can say this, once you do get into it, it's pretty easy to get hooked into it because it is just it's just a lot of fun. Like you want to talk about how do you get as close to being in a movie without being in a movie? It's shoot 3 gun, right? So like John Wick. I mean, imagine a John Wick movie, except that you're the one shooting the stage.
And that's gotta be a big reason to go do these competitions, even at a local level, because if you think about it, you can go to the range and shoot targets. And maybe even if at a range that is a little bit more flexible, you can set up multiple targets. Maybe you can draw, but to really do all this stuff, to go to a match, it's totally different because you are literally running and gunning and shoot. You may have 10 or more targets on a stage and barriers and all that. And it takes time to set that all up. And probably the only reason it's going to happen is for a match.
Yeah, I mean, and if you can set up multiple targets, then it's awesome to be able to train that way. But you also, when you get to a point where you're like, you're training, and I'm doing air quotes here, for a purpose of something, then you have to learn how to train, right? Like some people will just say like, oh yeah, I went and shot 300 rounds at the range today. It's like, okay, cool. What'd you work on? Well, what do you mean? Like, well, were you working on reloads? Were you working on your draw? Or you work, whatever. Like you got to have a purpose every time you pull the trigger if you're trying to impress or improve on something, right? And the other thing and this is always the argument that you'll get from the tactical side to the competition side, there's this argument. Competition will get you killed on the streets.
Right. What's up with that?
So they see what we do and they think that those are our tactics. Like in real world, if 5 guys are coming at me, I'm going to stand still in the middle of the door frame and just shoot 2 bullets in each guy. And they say, now you're trained to only pull the trigger twice on someone when you're going to need 6 or 7 to put them down or anything like that. And so they try and assume like, well, when I saw you shoot that match, you were not very tactical. It's like, you're damn, because it's a game. I'm playing the game. And if I want to be good at the game, I got to play the game just like everyone else does, right?
Yeah.
And then whenever I do have that discussion with people, I'll always just be the first one to be like, okay, you know what, you got a gun on you? Like if it's at the range, like let's hey, on the buzzer, draw and shoot that target. How many times you want to pull the trigger? You want to do it 5 times? Cool. So on the buzzer, draw and shoot that target 5 times. How about a reload? Let's throw a reload in there and then do 2 more in the head, right? Okay, cool, let's go. And after the buzzer goes off and I'm done shooting and I'm clearing my gun and they've just now performed their reload to start the headshots, I'm like, so let me ask you something. What is so bad about being able to draw my gun fast, get my shots on target and accurately, because I've got all alphas, you've got alphas and Charlies all over the place, perform a fast reload, do 2 shots in the head, and do it under the pressure of me competing with you? Tell me what's bad about that. Because
it's like these champion shooters that I'll do some filming with from time to time. And I mean, world class, world champions. And one of the things, that they'll do from time to time is they'll train military and law enforcement and some elite military law enforcement. And they'll all say, this isn't my world. I'm not a tactics guy, but I can teach you how to shoot fast and how to shoot accurately, which is like, I don't know what percentage of the equation it is, but it's a large percentage. Like, can you shoot fast and accurately at least?
Yeah, and I've been blessed to be able to do some training with PD officers and some SWAT officers back in Vegas and stuff too. And yeah, that's exactly what I say. Is like, look, I'm not in your, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to slice the pie, or all I'm going to show you is how I play my game, and then you take whatever I'm talking about, dissect it, and take what you want to and apply it to your own training. Throw everything else aside. If it's got nothing to do with what you do for your job and living, cool. But if you learn one thing, then I think this session's going to be worth it, right? So yeah, I mean, competition shooting, it's also a great way, because like the thing you'll learn the first time you go to a match, you're going to learn real quickly how you lose thought under stress. Like your first stage, you're going to walk through. Someone can walk you through it too. They're going to say, we're going to shoot this target, and this target, and then when you're running to that window, I want you to reload your gun.
Right.
And as soon as that buzzer goes off, your brain goes out the window, and you'll go da 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 da, and you'll just run to the first window, and you'll start shooting. And next thing you know, your gun's dry, and you're looking at it. You're like, "What the heck happened?" And it's because you completely forgot about your reload, stuff like that. Like,
yep. Absolutely true. I can speak to that. I'm not like a competition shooter guy. I've shot some matches, and that's the part that gets me. I'm not bad at being shooting relatively fast and accurately, but it's you need to do your reload while you're moving from this bank of targets to that bank of targets, because if you don't, you're going to shoot one shot and you're going to run dry and it's going to be slower. And the procedural stuff, or like, how many targets are there out there? Oh, you forgot that there was one in the back, and you're going, it's the thinking on your feet while you're shooting.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, that's it. Wouldn't that be a good thing to learn? Like, the only other way to really be ready for a gunfight situation is go get into a gunfight. That's the only other way to do it, right? Like, and then you got all sorts of legal issues that you're going to deal with. So
don't do that, guys.
No, yeah, for sure. But it's like, for me, it was always like, it was a great way to learn how to become proficient with your firearm, to learn how to get out of your head enough to be able to assess what's going on around you, but also stay within, to be able to think clearly, like to know, okay, I've got 3 targets coming up. Okay, I'm moving to this, 2 more targets. Okay, reload here. Like, to be able to think those while you're under the pressure of the timer. And I'll also say this, you do have a squad of people, so there is a little bit of pressure. It's mostly self-inflicted, but knowing that you've got people that are watching you shoot is a big deterrent for some people about competition shooting, because they think they're being judged by those peers. But I'll say this, for anyone that wants to go and shoot a match, please understand this. Anyone that's on your squad, they are not there to judge you. They're not there to laugh at you, unless they're your friend already. And all they really want for you is to get through the match safely, and then to see that you have fun.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, no one's going to judge you, laugh at you, make fun of you, talk about you behind your back. Like, we are a very tight-knit group, and people that do that kind of stuff, they don't last long, because once it gets out that, hey, that person's an a-hole, no one will squad with them. Matches will tell them, like, you know what, we don't want you here because we've had multiple complaints about you as a competitor. You've been DQ'd for unsportsmanlike conduct before. They'll get weeded out. So
yeah. And also, I mean, these are sports that are, for the most part, individual sports. So a lot of times, I mean, if you're good, you're saying, I'm trying to win the match. But for most of us, you're competing against yourself. Was that a good stage for me? Did I run it clean? Was I accurate? All those things. And you can have fun and just improve for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's always what it's supposed to be, right? Like, you shouldn't, in any competition, it shouldn't be about, I have to beat the other guy. It really comes down to, I need to perform the best that I can and see who does it best, right? Yeah. And even for USPSA, one of the cool things about them is they actually have a classification system. So let's say, for example, you decided you wanted to go to nationals, and after shooting a few local matches, you've been classified as a C-class shooter, which means that you're in I believe it's the 50 to 60 percentile of the shooters in the US. When you go to nationals, you actually get to compete against other C-class shooters. So even though the results are completely compiled about every shooter at the match, in reality, the only people you're focused on is everyone else that has a C next to their name that's shooting the same division as you. So you get to be competitive within your skill set. So you can have someone that becomes the C-class national champion of production division or something like that. They give you an award. They'll give you a trophy. They'll call you up. You'll get recognition. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to do. So another
cool.
thing, yeah, don't, and when you, worst thing you could do is go on YouTube or anything like that and look up Dave Savigny, Rob Latham, and watch our videos, because you'll watch it and go, I have to do that. Like, no, I can't do that fast. You need to understand, those people, you know, even myself included, we're the top 10%. That's like, you know, that's like saying like, well, I don't ever see you watching NASCAR and then being afraid of getting in your car and driving to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be doing what NASCAR
Yeah.
people do. You're just doing what, you know, you can do at the time. So now, as far as your next part of the question with multi-gun, it does seem like it's kind of slowed down a bit since the 3-Gun Nation days, but I think that's a lot to do right now, especially with ammo availability and the pricing of it, and then plus the fact, like, you know, we're in this position right now where I could go buy 250 rounds of shotgun 12 gauge, but that might mean I have to buy one less pack of ramen than I usually can, you know, just because the cost of everything's going up.
Yeah.
Paychecks aren't necessarily going up along with it. So I think the slowdown isn't necessarily because the sport is bad or dying. I think it's just out of necessity for people being like, I have to put my priorities in order. And unfortunately, bullets are not very high on the priority to just burn at a match. Like, obviously, I think investing in heavy metals like lead is very important in times like now. But at the same time, that's, you know, I've got ammo, and I'm not necessarily just going out and training the way I normally do, because I'm trying to be a little bit on the more conservative side right now with everything being.
Yeah, you make adjustments, right? And I mean, probably it's a good reason why you should maybe shoot different disciplines. You can kind of adjust and ebb and flow. And I mean, could be, you know, an economics thing. It could be, hey, I'm just kind of getting into more pistol shooting, or I want to really get better with my concealed carry rig, and I could go that direction. You know, variety is the spice of life, right? John, you guys have a new gun that everybody's talking about, and after the break, I want to dive into the 5.0. Do you like deals? Sure, we all do. Well, from now through April 17th of this year, when you purchase a new Walther PDP model, you'll receive a free Ameriglow pistol optic. Wiggity what? That's right. MSRP value of $379. Ameriglow Haven Handgun Red Dot sight when you purchase a PDP, standard PDP or Walther PDP F series. So go check it out. You'll learn more over at waltherarms.com. If you're thinking about getting a Walther, thinking about getting a handgun, get a free pistol optic with it. Love that. Then you're good to go. Silencer Central, they make it easy to buy silencers. We've been talking about this, and if you haven't done it yet, why not? If last year you're like, well, I want to buy a silencer, but it just takes so long, you could have had it by now. Well, I want to talk about the Banish 22. They have a whole line of Banish suppressors that are their suppressors that they make. The 22 is designed for rimfire rifles and pistols, and it is as close to Hollywood quiet as you can get without sound effects. Full titanium construction, easily serviced for cleaning. It's the quietest silent rimfire suppressor that they make, and it's a pretty decent price too. Like I said, they make it easy. Go over to silencercentral.com and look at that one. Look at all the other ones. Add it to your pistols, your rifles. You won't regret it. Colt's new gun, the CBX Precision Bolt Action. 308 Winchester, 24-inch barrel, adjustable cheek riser, nitride finish. It's a modern bolt gun. I mean, and I shot it out at Gunsight a couple months back. Super sweet. It's a chassis system. Features a 15-inch forend, extended forend with an ARCA rail. And the deal is, a lot of people are attaching their guns to bipods, tripods with that ARCA system. And it's just a clean way to attach it or detach it. You can pick up and walk around, even keep your gun attached to the tripod when you're doing a stalk. I did that actually earlier this year, and it worked fantastic. Adjustable length of pull. Obviously, a chassis gun has a lot of adjustments: barricade stop, pistol grip, thumb shelf, QD cups. ambidextrous mag latch. So go check it out over at Colt.com. It's the Colt CBX. Have you ever taken a gun training course? And I'm not talking about a concealed carry certification where you sit in a classroom for 8 hours. I'm talking about get on the range for a day or 2 or 3 and really learn under the watchful eye of a supervised instructor, someone who knows what they're doing and can help you get better. That's what we're doing at Range Ready. RangeReadyStudios.com. We have all sorts of courses there on the lineup. We've got concealed carry tactics. We've got the first person defender experience. We've got ladies only handgun classes. We've got carbine classes. So go check it out. Make this a priority for yourself this year. If you have never taken a class, go take a class. You'll get better. You'll be more prepared. And I promise you'll have some fun. RangeReadyStudios.com. All right. So John, SHOT Show is our big show of the year. People release new products. A new one that's kind of everybody's talking about from you guys is the 5.0, the Rock Island Armory 5.0 ST. Did I get that right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, 5.0 is the general model, and after that, you've got the ST or the standard, and then we've got the red dot optic version. But yeah, I mean that thing exploded way bigger than we thought it was going to be.
I mean, it looks cool. I think I need your explanation. I get it. A deeper bore axis, a special, minimizing recoil, but how? Why? A patented recoil system. What's this all about?
Yeah, so when the good thing about this gun was that it was designed by an individual, Freddie Craig, who also shot guns. Like, he's an engineer, but he was also a competition shooter. So for him, it was a lot about understanding recoil impulse, muzzle flip, and all that kind of stuff. So when he starts designing a gun, it's really to try and find a way to help mitigate those things, because the gamers in us, the competition side, like, a lot of people don't use stock ammunition. They custom load their ammunition to fit the springs that they'll swap out in their pistols to get the softest recoil impulse and, stuff like that. So to a gun like the 5.0 with like the RVS, the ram valve system, as far as the recoil system goes, and the way the gun is designed with the bore axis being so low, the grip being able to get up as high as possible into it, the slide being pretty minimalist as far as the reciprocating weight, even the barrel. Like, if you look at the barrel, most people have noticed that it's kind of more of a square-ish size instead of it being round. Well, that square-ish size means that a lot of mass is staying still at the front end of the gun, not reciprocating back and forth. You're not having to increase the mass of the slide because now you've cut a hole. You've actually kept the square, the holes inside the square. Well, everything outside that square is mass that doesn't have to reciprocate now and stays on the front end of the gun.
Keeps the weight out there.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the full length dust cover. Granted, it's aluminum, but aluminum's heavier than polymer last time I checked, So everything about that gun was really designed to try and help mitigate that recoil impulse, due to the fact that the guy that designed the gun is a shooter as well, and isn't just like, oh yeah, let's just design this cool gun. And like, there's a reason behind every part that was designed that way.
So, I mean, kind of the specs, the stats. I mean, it's 9mm, 17+1 capacity, 5-inch barrel, or approximately 5-inch barrel. 4.91 is what you guys have on your website. Big full size gun, right?
Yeah.
Almost 2.5 pound gun. And it's interesting because when we get away from the concealed carry side of things, we're seeing a lot of people say, well, if I'm not having to carry it, I want it to be big and heavy and awesome to shoot. And that seems to be what this gun is.
Yeah, so it definitely was designed originally to be more of a competition-focused firearm. However, what I will say is that due to its release and the fact that this is the first firearm that, or first handgun that we're manufacturing, producing, and releasing from here in the U.S., because that's based out of Cedar City, Utah, at the Rock Island Armory USA plant.
Awesome.
And they work very closely with the law enforcement that's out there in Utah, and when the police officers got a chance to try it, they actually fell in love with it. The department requested some changes to be made if possible, so that they could allow their police officers to actually carry that firearm, because they fell in love with it that much. So even though it was based around the competition world, and that's why we have things like a super light trigger for the first version that we released, we're starting to make some adjustments to it to make it more general public and even LE and friendly. So,
Okay.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I know the first time people see it, they're kind of like, "Oh man, that's a honking frame," and all that kind of stuff. Like, it looks a little Call of Duty, like Black Ops-ish, right? Like those
Yeah.
super futuristic guns that you're like,
Kind of
"What?"
squared off. I mean, it looks, I love the look of it. I mean, but it looks like, if you run out of ammo, you can also use it to bludgeon someone.
Heavy's good, heavy's reliable, right?
Yeah.
So no, yeah, but I mean, we've been surprised with the fact that even though we thought it was going to be mostly for competition or even just recreational shooters, but people that just, they just want to go to the range, they collect guns or anything like that, to see so much more interest in it from like the law enforcement side, not the military side, was kind of a surprise for us. So we are looking at making some changes, things like maybe adding an external safety potentially, and then increasing the trigger weight and whatnot. But because that's the other thing that's interesting about that firearm, is that even though it looks like a striker fired, it's actually got an internal hammer system in it. So it
Okay.
still shoots from a hammer falling on the firing pin when you pull the trigger, which means that you don't have that striker fire feeling trigger. I kind of explain it as like a rolling trigger. Like, how typically a striker
Okay.
fires, you take up your pre-travel and then you get to that
Sure.
really stiff wall,
There's
and
not
then
a
you have to
wall that you're
overcome the wall.
hitting.
There's a wall, but it's like it's not like it's not like a 1 pound pull to a 5 pound wall. It's more like, here's a 2 pound pull to like a 2.5 or 3 pound pull through, and
Gotcha.
then the shot breaks. So it's a phenomenal trigger to shoot. Honestly, I'm super excited when I can get my hands on one for my personal. Obviously, we're trying to sell as many as we can right now. When I can get one, my goal for it is to take it to the Bianchi Cup, which is a very marksman based match, to see how it can do as a production style gun, like one that's just coming out of the factory. I'm not big on having custom guns built for me, even though I've had a few built for me that were custom. I try to keep mine, off of the manufacturing line, just like everyone else, and then let's tune it up a little bit, get a little bit more competition friendly for me personally, because I like to show people, like, if you're ever at a match with me and you come up and you say, "Hey, can I see your gun?" I don't want to hand them a gun that they can't have. I would rather hand them a gun and they go, "Okay, cool. So I can turn a stock gun into this." Like, yep, just a couple $100 of trigger job work and maybe swap out sights. Yes,
Right.
this is the gun you would end up with, right?
Well,
So
and Bianchi Cup is a great test of the shooter and the gun, because yes, accuracy, marksmanship. It's I think it was actually Jim Clark Jr. told me this. He's like, what you had back when I was there 10 years ago. He said you've got the accuracy, like bullseye Olympic type folks saying, "I'm not sure if I can shoot this fast," and you have the action pistol guys going, "I'm not sure if I can shoot this accurately." So it's hard for everybody. And it's a great test. Another thing, talking about this as a law enforcement option, to me, there's kind of two big things that are important to law enforcement. They're looking at guns. Obviously, reliability is key. But another thing that this gun may achieve for them is they'd like something that is easy to shoot for most people. Because if you think about law enforcement, they're not all competition shooters. I mean, and you've got a 5 foot, 110 pound woman law enforcement officer, and you've got 6'4" SWAT dude. And if they can all shoot it well, that's really that's money for them.
absolutely. And I'll say this, I'm not going to say that top of the line gear can get you better. Like, you can't buy your way to a national title, right? But it can buy you some improvements. And sometimes, like, a little improvement, like on the trigger, like if you shoot a Glock, okay, cool, you shoot a Glock. But if you get a Glock trigger job, you will shoot that gun a little bit better because of that upgrade when it's more customized to you, kind of thing. And so while I'm not going to say that the 5.0 would cure all of your flinches or anticipations, or having a really nice trigger and a soft recoiling gun can help you out. It's just, it's kind of one of those things. If you hand a Fender Stratocaster from Mexico, and then a $800 guitar, and then you hand them a $3,000 guitar from Fender that's a Stratocaster too, to a person that doesn't play guitar, they don't know the difference. They're like, yeah, they're both guitars. Like I can't feel a difference, can't hear a difference. But for someone that's a guitar aficionado, will absolutely be able to say like, oh man, the tone of this American Strat is just so much warmer and nicer. Like they can differentiate those.
They appreciate it. They can really take advantage of it.
Exactly. So I mean, if you start with the gun, then just know you're starting off with the American Strat. So don't expect to go back to a Mexican made Strat and be like, oh no, this is just as good. Because you'll be like, oh, what is this garbage?
You're gonna be spoiled.
Yes, exactly.
John, man, this has been fun. Thanks for being on with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
So what I want to see is this holiday season, John McClain with the Rock Island 5.0 duct taped to his back and doing like a El Prez or something like that.
I can definitely see if I can make that happen. I don't know if it'll be duct tape, but we can at least try and make something like that happen. That's a great idea for a video. You know what? I think I will try that. And as soon as I get it, I'll send it to you.
Seems like something you should do. All right, man.
I agree.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation. To see all of Gun Talk's content, go to guntalk.com, guntalktv.com, or sign up for the Gun Talk newsletter.